My mother whispered that she would strangle me in my sleep. My father described, in terrible detail, how he would throw me down a well. I was 13 years old, and they were forcing me to marry a man of 29. This is my story, and now, with Iraq's new law allowing marriage at age 9, countless other little girls will face the same nightmare I lived through. I was only 13 years old when my family told me I had to marry a 29-year-old man. I cried. I fought back. But nobody listened. The pain cut even deeper because I loved reading about human rights and freedom. Even as a young girl, I understood that what was happening to me was wrong. They were stealing my childhood, my teenage years, and my basic rights as a human being. When I tried to say no, the violence began. My family ripped hair from my head. They smashed my face into the ground. They threatened to pull me out of school. But the worst threats came at night. My mother whispered that she would strangle me in my sleep if I refused this marriage. My father described, in terrible detail, how he would take me to our relative's village and throw me down a well to die. They made it clear, if I said no to this man in front of him or his family, they would kill me. I ran to my aunts for help. They had been forced into marriage when they were young too, but they refused to help me. Maybe talking about it would remind them of their own pain. Maybe they were too scared. I was completely alone. Every day brought more beatings, more psychological torture. Everyone called me a shame and a disgrace for wanting to refuse my father's decision. But I kept asking myself, wasn't my father the real disgrace? What kind of man ignores his own child's tears? I started to blame my body. By 13, I already looked like I was 20 years old. In another country, maybe people would have encouraged me to play sports or try modeling. But here, my developed body was seen as a problem that needed to be fixed through forced marriage. I hated getting my period because it meant I was qualified for marriage. The normal pain of menstruation became unbearable because of what it represented. I hated the man they chose for me. I hated the wedding dress. I hated the celebration songs. Most of all, I hated myself. On my wedding day, I sat in the beauty salon crying so hard that the makeup artist couldn't do her job. My tears washed away everything she tried to apply. Eventually, she started crying with me. For most women, wedding tears are tears of joy. For me, they were tears of grief. I became a doll sitting in the middle of songs and laughter. But the laughter wasn't mine. The celebration words didn't belong to me. I sat next to him, wearing a dress his mother had chosen, a dress that exposed part of my chest. Everything was chosen for me. I chose nothing. That whole day exists in my memory as just a blur. Every time he tried to put the wedding ring on my finger, I pulled my hand away. Everyone thought I was being shy. The truth was, I felt disgusted. I barely spoke to him. My hatred was so strong that I imagined taking the cake knife and plunging it into his heart. How could a grown man want to marry a child? Even if her body looked grown up, she was still just a child inside. In the beginning, I avoided him as much as possible. I focused on my school exams and homework. But then something confusing started to happen. His gifts, his attention, his kindness, especially compared to my family's violence and cruelty, slowly began to weaken my hatred. I became so confused. Do I hate you? Or do I love you? I ran out of ways to avoid him. I pretended to be sick. I said I had exams. I claimed to have headaches. I even forced myself to vomit so I could stay in bed. Then, 1 month after the marriage, my father beat me worse than ever before. He broke a wooden cane across my back. Then, he grabbed a hammer. Then, a wrench. Anything he could reach. All because I had used the phone at the wrong time. I remember how my husband touched the wounds on my hands. He refused to believe my story about falling down the stairs. I cried in front of him, and he didn't push me to explain. I started thinking, maybe this man who won't let me go to university and wants me to wear full Islamic covering would still be more merciful than my father? He was kinder. My family encouraged me to stay alone with him, hoping I would warm up to him. He was affectionate and generous with me. But I couldn't tell, did I love him? Or did I just love the affection he gave me? When he left, I hated him again. When my family was cruel, I loved him. It was too much confusion for a 13-year-old girl. One day, he was helping me with schoolwork in his area of expertise. Suddenly, he kissed me. My body reacted with a gentle shiver and a tickle of pleasure. Then anger exploded out of me in a scream. I didn't want my first kiss to be with him. Even today, I feel like it was stolen from me. He stole my right to choose who would kiss me first, even if that person might betray me or leave me later. I wanted the right to choose. Everyone thought my scream meant I was shy. They thought I was reacting to breaking a taboo. In our culture, a man wasn't supposed to touch his wife before the official wedding night celebration. After that kiss, he began to control me in ways I only understood years later. Every time I complained about school, family, or my dreams, he silenced me with a longer kiss. He awakened places in my body I hadn't discovered yet. He turned study time and rare trips outside into moments of sexual play. He began teaching me what marriage and physical intimacy meant. When I refused his touch, he would sulk and pout. He blamed me for his desire, making me feel responsible for satisfying him. "You are my wife," he would say, putting the burden of relieving his sexual urges on me. Later, I learned this was emotional manipulation, whether he meant to do it or not, of a teenager experiencing sexuality for the first time. I don't know if he had been with many women before, but he knew how to make me surrender. He did it through my fear of losing him and my craving for the sweetness he offered. I grew afraid of disappointing him. I don't know how I reached that point after just 2 years with him. I felt ashamed, especially when I didn't want the kisses, the touches, the sexual fantasies. And yet, often I longed for him. I began waiting for him, wanting him. My hatred weakened. I forgot about my dreams and started accepting the life waiting for me, because maybe it would be less violent. Because of fights between his family and mine, we separated after 3.5 years together. I didn't fight the separation. I was just in survival mode. The shocking part? I felt relief. What I had mistaken for love vanished in seconds. I admit I missed him for about a year. But then came only guilt for giving him parts of my body. Why hadn't I resisted more? The question haunted me. My memories became a flood of intimate moments, each one filled with shame. I had been raised to believe that a woman's body was tainted and dirty if touched by a man who wasn't her husband. For years, this twisted my view of men and relationships. I began to think love was tied exclusively to sex. Even when I liked someone later, I never told them about this relationship. I was afraid they would see me as defiled or demand explanations for feelings I couldn't name. I began feeling disgusted by my own body, by myself. I entered a spiral of guilt. But was I truly guilty? Why did I blame a 14-year-old child instead of the 30-year-old man? Why didn't I blame the family that left a young girl alone with a man full of sexual desire? I even blamed myself for saying, "I love you" to him, words that had been false and delusional. But was it really love? Or was it non-consensual all along? I felt too ashamed to tell this story to anyone, even after I became somewhat independent following many family struggles. What helped me most was earning my own money, which opened different doors to freedom. A friend always told me, a child should not feel shame. But shame kept me silent, even with 3 different therapists. As I learned more about human rights and freedoms, my guilt only grew. Why hadn't I fought harder for my freedom? Everything changed when I spoke to a new therapist. She didn't blame me or judge me. When I tried to hold back my tears, she told me it was okay to cry. I went through a long process of working through guilt and shame. I learned to accept that I hadn't been at fault, that I had been a victim. Now, I am a survivor. What I went through was not love. It was a form of early forced marriage that dragged me into emotional and psychological confusion I wasn't ready for. I was a child. Every swing between hate and desire, fear and survival, was only the echo of childhood trauma. I clung to the man forced upon me, not because I truly loved him, but because in the harshest moments, he seemed more merciful than my own family, the family that beat me and threatened to murder me. I learned to see him as a protector, when the truth was he was part of the circle of control over me. Psychology has a name for this: trauma bonding. My first kiss was not love. It was the theft of choice. My first touch was not desire. It was the result of emotional blackmail that placed blame on me each time I refused. Over the years, my body swung between pleasure and shame, as if I were responsible for his sexual urges, as if my fault was not screaming louder or running farther away. But now I know the fault was not mine. It was not the fault of a 14-year-old girl who didn't know how to protect herself. It was the fault of an adult man who exploited my vulnerability. It was the fault of a family, a society, and a law that abandoned me. Every day I remind myself that what I lived through was not love. It was violence that stripped me of my childhood and my right to choose. The lingering confusion between "I love you" and "I hate you" is nothing but the scar of a deep wound. It's the mark left from a time when I was forced to carry what no child's heart or body should ever have to bear. Today, I feel the need to tell this story. My experience was not an isolated incident. It was an early glimpse of what Iraq's new law, which legalizes marriage from the age of 9, may mean for countless other girls. This law opens the door for my story to repeat itself with other children. Little girls who will be robbed of choice and pushed into unequal relationships, all under the cover of law. Passing such a law means nothing but legitimizing violence. It entrenches control over the bodies of millions of women and girls like me. It turns childhood into a marriage contract instead of a time for safety, play, learning, and growth. Children as young as 9 will now face the same fate I did. My friend Elizabeth started sharing with me about Jesus, the one who heals broken hearts and gives hope to the hopeless. Lately, I've been secretly attending a Bible discipleship class, and every lesson feels like light breaking into my darkness. I'm praying that God will see me through this journey and make me whole again. Take action today. If this story broke your heart, don't let it end here. Subscribe to this channel to hear more survivor stories and stay informed about child marriage laws worldwide. Like this video to help YouTube show it to more people who need to understand what child marriage really means. Share this video with your friends, family, and social media. Awareness is the first step toward change. Comment below. Have you heard stories like this before? What can we do to protect children from forced marriage? Together, we can amplify survivors' voices and demand change. Your engagement matters. Every view, share, and comment helps protect children worldwide. Child marriage is not culture. It is not tradition. It is violence against children. Let's end it together. Turn on notifications so you never miss a story that needs to be heard.